Welcome to Delphi Dispatches. I'm Martina, your trusty guide through the pages of Camp Half-Blood and beyond. Grab your camp shirts, ready your weapons, and let's embark on this epic adventure together. This is Delphi Dispatches. Welcome to the first episode of Delphi Dispatches. As you heard in the intro, my name is Martina and I will be your host. And this is actually my first experience podcasting, so please excuse any mistakes I make along the way. I'm here to learn and to have fun with all of you demigods from around the world. Now let's just start into the podcast. So the first segment I created for the podcast is called Delphi Dispatches, hence the name of the podcast. And it's mostly about Percy Jackson news regarding books, cast, TV show, Rick Riordan, and everything around that. In this first episode, it's probably gonna be a bit longer than in the future, just because it's the first episode and I grouped a lot of news in, and there's also a lot of TV show news, which we will get to now and in the future few episodes. The first news I wanted to include was the panel at New York Comic Con this year, which was on the 15th of October. We got a lot of interesting tidbits from filming, from the panel itself, and also from a few interviews. I grouped a few of the interesting things out, and I'm gonna tell you about them. So let's start at the beginning. No, actually, let's start at the end of shooting. Because they were shooting in a thing called the volume. It's like an LED wall, and they used it for other projects like The Mandalorian and the third Ant-Man movie, I think. And at the wrap party, apparently the kids got a Nintendo Switch hooked up to it and played life-size Mario Kart, which I would love to see, like everywhere around you, and you're basically the driver. And another thing from the panel I found really interesting was the art department, or rather the costume department, told us about the t-shirts, that they had to test like 20 different shades of orange to make the perfect t-shirts, which worked like on camera inside and outside and sun, shadow, cabins, the woods, everywhere. And in total they had to like dye about 350 plus t-shirts because no one had the exact color of t-shirt that they need, so they had to DIY it. And another thing they talked about with the art department / costume department was that each cabin had their own sort of style for the shirts. Like the Ares cabin was a bit more punky and war-esque, and the Hephaestus cabin had like ripped off sleeves because of the heat from the forge. And during the panel, they showed a few clips from the first two episodes. I was not there. I only watched the live, like the recording of it, so they didn't show the clips on there. But from what we know, it was the first 7 minutes of the first episode, the capture the flag scene, and the Minotaur fight. 3 big parts of the first 2 episodes, which I'm very excited to see. And also, a big surprise at the end of the panel, Rick and Becky actually showed up as a like quick surprise. They came in, like talked a bit, announced, yeah, let's watch the capture the flag scene, and then they were gone. So they weren't even at the interview part after that. Speaking of interviews, I watched a few interviews online and read them. Most notable are from Screen Rant and 6 Degrees of Geek. So those are the ones I'm referencing for this next little part. We're gonna go back to the costume design. The head costume designer, Tish Monaghan, talked about what was one of the most expensive / hardest parts to get just right, which was the Dryad costumes. And she mentioned one in specific. It's for a Dryad called Helena. We don't know that Dryad from the books, I think. The only Helen / Helena from Greek mythology I know is Helen of Troy, but I'm not sure if that has to do anything with that. She will be probably appearing in episode 2. And for this costume alone, it took over 1,000 hours hand work. Then the director of the art department, Dan Hanna, said one of the most expensive parts they had to create was Gabe's car, because they had 5 identical cars. It was a Camaro, I forgot the year. And they had 5 cars. 2 of them they crashed, and the other 3 they took for parts. So yeah, 5 cars adds up quickly. Then one of the things they wanted to get just right was the differentiation between the cabins. That they were like the books, but still you could see each god represented in the cabins. Then the visual effects supervisors Jeff White and Eric Henry talked about one scene that was really tricky to film / make the effects for, which is the scene where the animals get out on the Vegas Strip. They had to film that in 3 parts, which was like the people, which they shot in Vancouver, then the animals they shot in LA, and then of course the Las Vegas Strip in Las Vegas. And the 4th part was the CGI of the zebra, which was an extra part, and they had to mesh that all into one scene. Another thing they mentioned, which they wanted to get just right for the audience, for the people that read the books, grew up with them, was the visualization of the dyslexia that the demigods have. We saw a bit of that in the trailers. And also they said the bathroom scene was really fun to make, so we're gonna be really excited for this one. James Bobbin, the director and one of the EPs, said it was really great having Rick around, and he helped a lot with everything. I mean, yeah, he's the guy who made it all up, so I would hope so. And he's really proud of this one specific scene where Sally tells Percy who he is. It's in episode 1, and it's like the point where you and Percy realize how big the world is. And lastly, for the New York Comic Con part, it was John Steinberg and Dan Schultz, who are the showrunners and also EPs on the series. One of the many things they said was that they're really happy to bring across the emotion and excitement of all the people involved in the project, to bring that on the screen and into our hearts. So we're gonna move on chronologically with the rest of the news. The next one was about an interview the trio did with Variety, and this was published on YouTube, I think, on the 18th of October, and they played Most Likely To, and there were a lot of fun things we found out about the 3. Like that Walker forgets his line a lot, and that Arian and Walker both know a lot of Greek mythology, and especially about the Rick Riordan books. Arian knows more about the Heroes of Olympus books, and Walker more of the PJO books. In one recent interview, he said he read them, I think, 7 times already, since 3rd grade or so. They also said Leah would be most likely to play a villain in like a superhero movie. From that conversation, there was like this little tidbit from Arian, which I just laughed out loud when he said that. I think Arian thinks that Cats is a Disney movie. You know, Cats, the musical, adapted to a horrible movie. Yeah. I don't know. I really don't know what to say about that. We also found out that they're all kind of pranksters. They told a bit about a supposed prank Leah and the doubles wanted to play on Arian, but backfired on Leah. And we also found out that Arian can sing. They mentioned he has a YouTube channel. I looked it up. It's super cute because it's small Arian. So if you have time, just search it on YouTube. You'll find it. It's great. Next, we got the release of the trailer on November 16th, of the official trailer, because before that we just got teasers. And this trailer got so many streams. In the first 10 days of its release, it amassed over 84.3 million views across all official social media sites they posted it on. That's a lot, and we're gonna keep going like that, because that's what us demigods do. When we're dedicated, we are dedicated. Then we had a few pictures released, specifically released with the Lightning Thief tie-in edition that was like released on the 21st of November. There were 8 pictures from the movie, and on those 8 pictures we see the following. So the first one is Percy and Mr. Brunner, aka Chiron, which is probably on the last day of the Yancy Academy year, like on the last day when Percy is at Yancy Academy. Then we have a picture of Percy and Grover waiting on the future of Percy at Yancy Academy. And I really like the school sweater Grover wears with the Yancy Academy logo, and it looks like a real school. I mean, yeah, that's what the costume department is for, so... Next one is a scene where Percy meets Luke, and we also see that Luke has 5 beads on his necklace, which is important for the plot, like for the timeline. We also have a picture of Percy meeting Annabeth. I think they're meeting for the first time, although it seems like it's the bathroom scene, or right after the bathroom scene. We also have Percy trying different things to find out what he's good at, maybe discovering his godly parentage. And in this specific picture, it's Percy weapon forging and Luke like watching over him. Yeah, and the next picture we have Percy meeting Clarice, or at least fighting with Clarice, and Clarice having her iconic electric spear. The second to last is the trio setting off on their quest. And the last is Medusa. We see her with a hat and like this partial veil over her eyes because, of course, we can't look her in the eyes or she'll turn us to stone. And I really like the design of the Medusa they have here because it's like something different from the books and yeah, also from the movie, but we'll just ignore the movie. And I really like the way that they're going for her. Then, on the 27th of November, we got the official episode titles revealed, and the episode titles are straight from the book, so we know it's gonna be good. At the 1st of December, we got a new poster, which is also really... I mean, all the posters we got so far for Percy Jackson are, like, great. They have the poster game down to a T. In this poster, we have, like, I think it's supposed to be Mount Olympus on the right side, and on the left side, I heard some people online saying it's the underworld, but I also think it could be, like, the Manhattan skyline. I am not from the US, so I have no idea how the Manhattan skyline looks. We also see a few monsters, namely the Minotaur and the Chimera. And in the middle, we have our trio, Percy holding the Master Bolt, Annabeth with her iconic dagger. We also found out that the underworld is gonna be like not fiery and red like you know it, or like you would expect it, but more like bleak and gray. It's essentially an upside-down version of Olympus. This was said by Dan Hanna to comicbook.com, and he's one of the production designers, so it's gonna be interesting. That's one of the reasons why I think it's not the underworld on the poster, but Manhattan. The next news we have is from the 2nd of December, and it's a bit of author news because it's a New York Times interview with Rick on the, I think it's called like series, the series is called By the Book. There the interviewer asked Rick a lot of like what he's reading and what are his reading styles. He told us that he's usually reading 3 books at a time, one in Italian to practice his Italian, then an English novel, well, a novel in English, and a non-fiction book in English. When he was asked which writers and so on he admired, he mentioned Madeline Miller, who we know from Circe and Song of Achilles. He said that she brought new life into the ancient Greek stories. And when asked about how he likes to read or where, he told us that he has this great home office with a large window overlooking the Charles River in Boston. And the perfect setting is like in winter with the fireplace on, some instrumental music playing in the background. He also told us that as a child he was a very reluctant reader, and all that changed when he started to read Lord of the Rings, and he also gave some writing advice to some aspiring readers. He said that he would like to read more about mythologies and folklores from around the world, so right in his wheelhouse. Our last news for today is from the 4th of December. It's 3 new posters from the trio. They all have the same style. It's like a portrait style of the main 3. and one half is like the usual outside world look of them, and the other side is in armor, or in Grover's case as a satyr. I'm gonna walk you through them. The first one is Percy. One side is like normal Percy, the other side is Percy wearing his Capture the Flag armor, and he has his empty necklace on. The Annabeth poster is similar. Annabeth, normal on one half, and the other half she's wearing her armor. And she has her necklace with 5 beads and the one ring. Not the one ring from Lord of the Rings, but the ring. And for Grover, it's like, on one side, it's the mist-covered Grover, how normal mortals would see him. And on the other side, it's the satyr version of Grover with a horn, a pointy ear, and also some vines on the side, symbolizing his connection to nature. Our next segment is called Demigod Discussions. In this segment, we'll talk about different stuff over the time, but today we're going to talk about the TV show and what we know about it, who's in it, and all that stuff. All the infos I'm going to share with you here are, as of recording this, I don't know if something's going to change. We know that the TV show is a straight adaptation of the book, The Lightning Thief from 2005 by Rick Riordan. And we also know that there have been 2 movies already made, one about the first, The Lightning Thief book, and one about the second, The Sea of Monsters book. And there's also the Lightning Thief musical. For the development, it's developed by the Disney Brand Television, the 20th Century Television, Mythomagic Inc., which is the production group of Rick and Becky Riordan. And it was pitched in 2019 as Disney acquired Fox in that year, and Fox had the rights to Percy Jackson movie/TV series. And it was greenlit in January of 2022. The platform it's going to be on is Disney+, so it's streaming. And the release will be weekly. So the first 2 episodes are going to be released on the 20th of December. From then on, every week on Wednesday, 1 additional episode. So that means the last episode will come out on the 31st of January next year. And for the length, we don't actually have an exact time yet, like how long they're going to be. I think Becky posted something online about them being appropriate for a school class. You know what I mean? Like that you could watch 1 episode in school during 1 class. So they're gonna be somewhere from 35 minutes to 50 minutes probably is my best guess. Then the filming, although the camp and most of it is set in the US, the camp specifically in Long Island or on Long Island, they film in Vancouver, which is typical for productions. And for the plot, we will get into that deeper next week, because next week I will do like an episode breakdown after we do the teaser and trailer breakdown. Now let's talk about who is making it. So I've searched online, specifically on IMDb, for the production team, and I've picked out a few people that work on it and are like, I think the most important. Mind you, I don't know anything about movie production. I did my best, and I'm also going to tell you a bit what they're known for so far. Dan Schutz and John Steinbeck are the showrunners and executive producers on the series. They both are known, or they both worked on the show Black Sails, which one other person of the cast is also involved in. You'll hear about them later. One of the directors is James Bobbin. He worked on some of the Muppets movies, also the Mysterious Benedict Society. 2 of the effects supervisors we met at the New York Comic Con were Jeff White and Eric Henry, who represented a lot of the visual effects artists working on this project. The composer they got for the series is Bear McCreary, who you might also know as the composer of the Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power series. And for costume design and art department, I already mentioned them in the news segment. The head of costume design is Tish Monaghan, who's known for working on things like Twilight. The head of the art department is Dan Hanna, as I mentioned, and he worked on things like The Hobbit, King Kong, and Lord of the Rings as well. So now that we have covered a lot of the important players on the production team, let's talk cast. I have categorized them into, let's say, species, ? It's demigods, mythical beings / monsters, humans, and then gods. Let's start off with the demigods. Two of our main trio are demigods. The first one, of course, being our titular Percy Jackson, played by Walker Scobell. He is an up-and-coming actor. You might also know him as playing the young Ryan Reynolds from The Adam Project from Netflix in 2020. And our second demigod from the trio is Annabeth Chase, played by Leah Jeffries. She had her debut in the film Beast in 2020, playing the daughter of the main character Idris Elba. Now on to some other demigods we encounter throughout our series. Dior Goodjohn is playing the daughter of Ares Clarice LaRue, and Dior also appeared in Are You Afraid of the Dark? And she also played Little Santana in one episode of Glee. So for all of the people like me who watched Glee growing up, that's her. And the last demigod I have to mention is, of course, Lucas Dillon, played by Charlie Bushnell. Charlie was also in the series Diary of a Future President, where he played Bobby, the older brother of the main character. Now on to mythical beings and monsters. Let's complete our trio with Grover Underwood, played by Aryan Simhadri. He played in Trevor the Musical, the off-Broadway version that is on Disney Plus, I think, where he played Walter. The next mythical being we encounter a lot is Chiron / Mr. Brunner. He's portrayed by Glenn Turman, who played in Super 8, where he portrayed Dr. Woodward. Now on to more of the monsters. We have the first monster Percy encounters in the book, Mrs. Dodds, aka the Fury Electo. She's portrayed by Megan Mullally, who you might know as Karen Walker from Will and Grace. One of the most iconic monsters of Greek mythology is probably Medusa, and I was really excited when I found out that Jessica Parker Kennedy is going to portray her, because I loved her as Nora West Allen in the CW's Flash. And the last monster we have to cover is Echidna, mother of all monsters, portrayed by Susan Cryer, who played a part in Silicon Valley. Then we have three more or less important normal humans in the first series. You're gonna see they ebb from very important to, yeah, I guess she's there. The first one, of course, being our favorite TV / book mom, Sally Jackson. She's portrayed by Virginia Cole. You might know her from Big Little Lies as Emily Barnes. We also have her annoying husband / Percy's stepdad, Gabe Ugliano. He's portrayed by Tim Sharp, and he previously was in Enlightened as Doogie Daniels. The last iconic human character from the first series who we know who's cast for is Nancy Bobofit, and the actress who's playing her is named Olivia Morton. I personally don't know a lot about her. On her IMDb, she has a lot of short films and also a TV series called Angel from the beginning of 2023, and I'm really excited to see how they're gonna portray Nancy in the series. Now, for the last part, we have the gods, the big interesting people that make the life of our demigods worse than it already is. Let's start out with the king of the gods himself, Zeus. He's portrayed by the late great Lance Reddick, who died unfortunately in March of this year. He is known playing in John Wick. He was Charon, which is kind of funny because Charon is also a figure in Greek mythology. Now he's playing Zeus, so fitting. Then we have one of his brothers, Poseidon, played by Toby Stevens. He is the other person I mentioned who's known for Black Sails, where he portrayed Captain Flint. And to round out the big three, we have Hades, portrayed by Jay Duplass. We know Jay from The Chair, where he portrayed Bill Dobson. And now we have a few other gods who play more or less important parts in the series. First, we have Dionysus, aka Mr. D, played by Jason Mantzoukas. Yes, that Jason Mantzoukas from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And Ares, the god of war, is played by Adam Copeland, aka Edge, the professional wrestler. But we know that he can act because he also already played a part in Vikings. And now the last two gods are actually not in the first book, so I'm really interested in how they're gonna be integrated in the first series. The first one is Hermes, and he is played by none other than famous playwright Lin-Manuel Miranda. If you don't know him, you don't know a lot about current musicals, apparently. He is the guy who wrote Hamilton and In the Heights. He wrote already so many songs for Disney movies like Moana and Encanto, and he is also a good actor. He plays in Historic Materials and Mary Poppins Returns. And the last god we have is Hephaestus. He's played by Timothy Omundson, who you might know as Carlton Lassiter from Psych. So these are our cast and crew of the series. We really gonna have a blast, I can already tell. This is so many stars and up-and-coming stars in one series that it can only be good. Yeah, it's gonna be good. I already know it. Now, to our last two segments for the episode. The first segment we have today is called Trivial Trials, and it's a little bit of a quiz. I'm gonna ask you two questions related to today's topics in some way or another. They don't strictly have to do with Percy Jackson itself, but they have to do with something I talked about today. You have until next episodes where I will reveal the correct answers. If you want, you can DM me your answers on Instagram at Delphi_Dispatches_pod. Question number 1. What classic book did Rick Riordan recently read in its original language, according to one of the interviews I mentioned? Question number 2 is, which of the cast of Percy Jackson and the Olympians has played a role in the Superman series Smallville? So these are our two questions for this week. Let me know what you think the answers are, and I will reveal the answers next week. And now for our last segment. It's called Mythical Music. Each episode I will pick one song to put on the official Mythical Music playlist. The song will have something to do with the topic that we talked about or the discussion we had. Since today is the first episode, I thought I would choose a song that reflects the love of the fandom of Percy Jackson. The song is called Monster by Nia CC, and I first discovered the song on TikTok where the creator pitched it to be on the TV show. She made a TikTok of a presentation why this song should be in the TV show, as it is heavily inspired by Percy Jackson. And it would be so cool if this actually was put in one of the episodes, or like when the credits roll, we can hear this song. And that concludes another adventure with Delphi Dispatches. Thank you, Demigods, for joining me on today's quest. Please consider subscribing to the podcast, and if you want to connect with me on Instagram, just follow at Delphi_Dispatches_pod for updates and a fun community. This is Martina, signing off until next time, and remember, the real world is where the monsters are.